Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome. I am so excited for this evening's event. Okay, so thank you, first of all, to our training and development coordinator, board member Natalie Johnson Lee, for getting us going. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited for our training. I think this is our second training that we're doing. So I'm really excited about that, and having our advisory board member, Dr. Paula Langford, here to share with us from the Healing Institute, LLC, healing one brain at a time across the world, Baltimore and beyond. So I'm so glad to have her Brainspotting Queen here to share with our board about this powerful modality, brain spotting. Um, it has, I can't say enough about how it has changed my life and even the way that I've practiced. From the very first time I took a brain spotting training, I knew that I wanted to bring this to Senegal and share it with the people there because of just the fluidity of using this model. And when you get to experience it, you'll see that a lot of it is rooted in our African culture. And so being able to do that this past summer was a dream come true. But nevertheless, we wanted the board and friends of Project Safety Nets, family members of Project Safety Nets, to also experience this modality. So before I turn it over to Dr. Langford, I'm going to, I was going to ask our training coordinator director, but she just put something in her mouth. I'm going to invite our Vice Chair Laverne to pray for us and ask God's blessings on us this evening.
Heavenly Father, we just want to say first and foremost, thank you. Thank you for your goodness. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for just blessing us to be alive another day. We're so grateful for how you kept us day in and day out up until this appointed time. And God, as we get ready to go and experience what you have for us, God, we ask that you have your way. God, you know what we're all in need of, and we are certain that you know how to bring to us all of the healing and the development and anything that is we are in need of. And so, God, we're thanking you for those that are taking part. We thank you for those that are leading. God, we thank you that our hearts are open, our minds are alert, and God, we are open to just receive from you. Anything that we are in need of, anything that we are lacking, God, we thank you for direction. We thank you for insight. We thank you for wisdom. We thank you for all it is that we are in need of, that you will take care of it. And anything that we fail to ask, God, we ask that you fail not to grant. Bless everyone one by one and name by name. And God, let us say it was good that we were here. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. And so now, ladies, and I think some gentlemen may catch this on the replay, I would like to introduce to you Dr. Paula Langford, who is our brain spotting queen. Dr. Langford has done so much with this modality, excuse me, and she was instrumental in the introduction of brain spotting after Amy Yang in Senegal when we did our information session, which was very powerful. And then traveled again with us to Senegal to share it with a group of probably about 25, 26 people who were trained this past summer. And so I couldn't think of a better person to bring to the board this evening. So Dr. Langford, take it away.
Thank you so much. I really am excited about this, explaining brain spotting I realized that we have a few mental health professionals on here, and so I didn't want to make this so technical, but I wanted you to be able to get an understanding of what brain spotting is. For those who don't know me, I am Paula Langford. I'm from Baltimore, and I am also the director of the Healing Institute. As Ann said earlier, we are healing the world one brain at a time. And we do that with neuro experiential therapies and interventions. And you'll get an understanding about what that is. I would like to introduce a really good friend of mine. She is a what did I say, honorary board member. And her name is Amy G. Gala. And we're going to be talking to her, and she's going to be talking to us throughout this training. So this is Amy. Amy, this is the rest of the board and the family. So I want to, and do I have a co-host so I can share my screen?
Yes, you can share your
Okay,
screen.
thank you. And please feel free to um ask questions. I like questions. I love questions actually. Throughout the presentation, I think, let's see here, I'm going to share my screen.
While you do that, Dr. Langford, Susan has her hand raised. Susan.
Do you prefer us to use raise hands for questions or?
I do not.
Yeah.
I do not, because I won't be able to see you with raised hands once I share the screen. But let's see. There we are. Unless Ann, maybe you can.
I can monitor it.
That
Dr.
will help.
Langford. I'll
Thank you.
monitor the chat, and I'll monitor the raise hand.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So again, we are going to be talking about brain spotting. And I thought it would be necessary for us to just think about what our objectives are for this evening, learning some basic neuroscience terms, techniques, how the brain actually works. I always talk about the historical perspective of trauma on the brain, because that is so important when we think about why we do what we do and how we do it. And then we're going to go into brain spotting neuro experiential therapy. What is brain spotting? What can you use brain spotting for? And how was it developed? Okay. So for those who were able to go to Senegal, West Africa, I want to introduce you to the Door of No Return. This is a Gorée island. It is the passageway where the largest number of Africans left the continent. And I have, after going for the last 5 years, I kind of renamed this because we have actually gone back. So it really is the door open to us to return home, as opposed to the door of no return, but its formal name is the door of no return. What ended up happening, if you ever get an opportunity, is such a spiritual experience. But the other thing about it is we get to, in many ways, experience the traumatic event that our ancestors had to endure, because it is through this that we left many of our people. We left our home, we left our culture. And when I say left, I do mean that it was taken from us. So we need to keep that in mind as well, that this is not something that was voluntary, but it was taken from us through, I think, for the last trip that we took to Gorée Island, which I never noticed, by the way, and is that if you see, there's a little space right here. Those are passageways, but those are passageways that the Senegalese and other Africans who were brought to the island tried to escape, but you cannot even escape. They had gunmen there So if they went that way, they would have someone there to force the Africans back towards the doorway. Okay, or they were killed. Right now, there is a drop there, a passageway where you can step down, but initially nothing was there. The boats went straight to the building, and the Africans were herded onto the boats. The only space between there would lead directly to the water where they would kill themselves. And many, keep in mind, many, there is the blood of our ancestors in this water where they refused to go. So it's a very heart-wrenching place to visit. We learned also at Goree Island that one of the first places that the coordinator, Maisenyai, takes us is into the place where they separated the children from their mothers. So just imagine what traumatic feeling these babies were having. They could not be nursed, they were sick, and their moms who literally had less than a hand's space to be able to try to reach their children. But remember, these are infants. These were not or toddlers, so they couldn't even touch their children. So imagine that. And when we talk about the epigenetics of slavery and the slave trade, that is also vibrating in our own cellular memory. That is a trauma that we have not had therapy for. And so when we think about that piece, Brainspotting is, and we will hear that it is a great modality to be able to go past, present, and future. Okay? And certainly, if there are any questions, please feel free to ask them. So again, when we think about the healing process, the impact of generational trauma and the epigenetic healing and recovery is really based on what I have said here: neuroscience and brain body interventions. What ends up happening, and what we have yet to even I think touch the surface on, is really that how does this brain work? And how is the brain recognizing traumatic events from even past the time that we have been here? Okay. And so when we connect the brain and the body interventions, Brainspotting being only one intervention that goes to the middle part of our brains to really address how that is impacting us. And when we talk about epigenetics, it really is the cellular memory, right? So everything, our bodies, I always say, God did a wonderful thing creating these things called humans, right? We are humans being. And so our cellular memory, just like we say, oh, we have brown eyes like our father, or we have a hairline like our mom, that also is related to trauma. This picture that you see here was once a picture that I never could look at. And it was so frightening to me and so triggering to me, even though I did not experience this portion of enslavement. It is something that really was very hard for me to watch. But these things, this is an ancestor of ours where we, as he has had children and grandchildren, that memory of those beatings, that memory of being taken is what vibrates in his cellular memory that has never been addressed. And so as we pass on our eye color, we pass on height and different genetic representations of our parents, grandparents, so forth and so on, we also pass on the trauma. Okay. All right. So when we talk about this brain, I love her, Amy G. Dollar, and I named her that because a lot of times when I'm talking about the brain, my younger clients have difficulty remembering that. And so when you put it all together, it is the amygdala. And the amygdala, what I believe and what I have come to understand, is really the central point of our brain that regulates 90 to 95% of all of our body functions. Now, the brain is only about 3 pounds. Every human brain, that is only about 3 pounds. And it consists of three parts of the brain stem, right? Our limbic system, which we'll get into in the middle portion, and then the prefrontal cortex that I always tell my clients, that's the forehead. So that's the front part of our brain. Just 3 pounds. So here, what we don't always get an idea about is what difference each part of the brain makes. So when we usually think about the brain, we think about it divided into two parts, right? The left brain, right brain. That previous slide is dissecting the brain in three parts in the opposite way. And so we have the prefrontal cortex, which is right here. And I'm just going to turn sideways a little bit. So this is how our brain is sitting right there in our heads. So the prefrontal cortex is right here in the front. The middle part of the brain, which is that limbic system, goes basically across the ears. And then that hindbrain or brainstem is located across the back. Okay. The hindbrain is actually the first portion. I wish I had thought about putting a picture. Someone just sent me a picture of the formation of this in embryo. But the hindbrain is the most primitive part of the brain. It is the oldest part of the brain, the middle part, and it literally does grow this way, right? And so the prefrontal cortex, or that front part of the brain, which is I'll say the analyst of us, the rational portion of the brain, it is the last portion that is developed, right? So this is the youngest portion of our brain. But when we think about the brain and how it functions, understanding that the left brain has our logic, our ideas, how do we process, actually how processes occur, and how do we take those and work through those. You see it says math there. How do we work through those processes? That's the left side of the brain. The right side of the brain is the creativity, intuition, arts, those kinds of things. And many people will say, oh no, I'm more right-brained or more left-brained. What really happens is we have an integration where we are using both sides of our brain. You can't shut down your left side of your brain in order for your right side to operate. It doesn't work that way. But there are people who tend to be very creative, and you'll see that. I'm probably I lean more towards utilizing the creativity side of my brain. I can come up with all kinds of things very easily, but the analyst part, that left side, that logic side of my brain, I've always utilized, because my mom says, you will ask a question about a question. And so being able to break down, what does that really mean? How does that work? Okay. Any questions about the left, right side of the brain, or the three parts of the brain? We're going to get into that a little further. Okay. All right. So here we have the brain as it is broken down. Like I said, that right, left side of the brain. And so when we are thinking about just a little bit about how therapies work, when we think about the talk therapy, we're really utilizing, when we're having conversation, we are utilizing this front part of our brain, that logic portion of our brain. And there are various layers to the brain. And again, that's another technical thing, layers to get to certain functions. And so this is the cerebral cortex here. This is where all our talk comes in. As soon as we start having a conversation, we're here. Trauma is processed, and I had to change that from lodged in or stored in, because Dr. Peter Levine talks about how trauma, really, there isn't such a stagnant portion of trauma, but trauma continues to work through this middle portion of the brain. And I have, particularly when we talk about the middle part of the brain, we really are talking about Amy G. Dollar, which is the amygdala. And that's this little portion here. I don't know if you can see that, but the amygdala literally means almond. Okay. And so what I tend to do is to really help people understand what is causing the functioning of the entire human system. It literally is an almond. The amygdala is no bigger than this. Yeah, Susan, wow. Right? And so 90 to 95% of our function is happening. Let me show you right there. That's where the amygdala sits. And then we also have the hippocampus and other portions. Now, this little thing, let me get it together here, right? This almond, this amygdala, sends signals. Most people think that when we talk about the brain, that the brain is the heart is sending the signal to the brain. It is not. It is the brain that sends the signals to everything. It says, move your hand because it's hot, right? And so we're going to talk about something called pinging, where when there is trauma or when the people are excited or fearful, this pings, this moves and says, hey, it determines whether or not you are in danger so that you need to move quickly, or it process what's going on, what's happening at that moment. And then there are 1 to 4 million, no, not million, quadrillion synapses that's flowing through this every time you are making a decision. So even if I'm looking at Anne rubbing her chin, those synapses are happening simultaneously. So it's so fast that oftentimes we don't pick that up, but the amygdala does. Any questions? And one of the reasons why I use brain spotting is because brain spotting is a technique that goes straight to the middle part of here, straight to the middle part of the brain. And it says, even if the trauma has occurred 100 years ago, because we have remember we talked about epigenetics, right? And so that unaddressed trauma constantly is being replicated every time a person is born. We forget that part. So my mom's trauma is vibrating in my system. My great-grandmother's trauma is vibrating in my system because it was vibrating in what? The egg and the sperm. So when they say you get, what is it, ragu is in there, it's in there. Okay. And so when we talk about brain spotting using, and we'll talk about a little bit, our eyes go straight to the amygdala. And we learn how to reprocess trauma to let this little thing, the little teeny tiny thing right here. I take it with, I think, let's see, she's been to 2 countries so far. Well, she's been to the Gambia. She's been to Senegal. Where else has she gone? Yeah, 2 countries. And I can't tell you how many states she has traveled. And this is the same one that I've always used. I haven't even changed her up. I think I might have to change her up, right? And so this is saying whether or not you are in danger. And everyone is different. That's why we experience trauma in a different way, right? Dr. Maxine's trauma is not going to be my trauma. It's not going to vibrate the same. Okay. All right. Questions? I see something in the chat, not sure. Oh, okay. All right.
Dr.
Yes,
Ford
Dr.
has her
Maxine.
hand up.
Mm-hmm.
I just would, is that because the difference, does that occur because of our environment or because of our internal, I guess, for lack of, I may not have terminology, our DNA? What causes the difference when we may have experienced the same trauma, a trauma that's passed on or experienced trauma?
So if you heard, so if I gave you, I'm just using this as an example. So if I gave you a soda today, is that soda going to be the same tomorrow? It's going to change its form.
Yes.
If you drink it today, it's going to change its form in your body. You already have, your body is going to process it very different from mine. So if I drink, even if we drink the same soda, it's not going to have the same impact. Does that make sense? So when we talk about trauma, many times people have seen, I'll use as an example also the 9/11. I was sitting at my desk and I could see the smoke, right? So I wasn't directly, I was close enough, but I have a colleague whose daughter was literally right there. Still a traumatic event, but I wasn't in the same physical space that she was. I don't know what her trauma, her past trauma included. And there is no one in the world who has not experienced trauma. So the way we process trauma, because you have big T trauma, things like a rape, or I had a fire, that's a big T trauma for me. Or you have little T trauma where something may be, I slammed my foot on the pavement. That could be physically traumatic to me. Or so there's a different way, just like there are no two people who are the same. Twins aren't even the same. Although they came from one egg and it split, they're not the same. So the processing of trauma is the same way. No two people are exactly the same. And no two people will experience the same, even if it's the same trauma, the same way.
Right. Okay, I get it. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Any other questions before we move forward? Okay. Okay. So when we think of our experiences with, this is the trauma response, but regardless of whether or not it is a pleasant or traumatic event, the brain cannot capture every single thing. So right now, your brain is processing, I'm going to use Susan. There's a light behind, I don't know if that's a green screen behind you. Is that a green screen behind you? Okay, so your brain has already processed and is still processing. There's a plant back there. There's a picture back there. There's a light back there. So, but there is an emotional connection to everything, because the brain cannot take all, okay, I gotta eat. I have to go to the bathroom. Oh, I see this fly that's flying around here. It's too much information. It would literally explode the brain. So what it does is it encapsulates it into an emotion. So there is nothing, I always tell my students, there's nothing that you have not seen, heard, tasted, smelled, or felt that the brain has not captured. This is one of the reasons why, and it's so powerful that the brain can bring up that memory. But they bring up that memory because not only have you seen it, we store it as an emotion. Case in point, what happens when you smell an orange, for those who like oranges? Can't hear you, Laverne.
Mouth starts salivating.
Mm-hmm. And you remember the first thing that happens is, what's that? This says, oh, there's pleasant. Wait, are we in danger? No, we're not in danger. I love oranges. I love the smell of oranges. Then your mouth starts salivating. I remember when, because it remembers literally the first time you had an orange and it was so good, right? And so it takes that emotion and associates that emotion. And I saw you muted. Were you going to say something? Okay. It associates with that emotion of both pleasant and traumatic. But when we think about our response, particularly to trauma, what happens is, and this is actually not correct. I couldn't find one of the graphics that was correct. The first response to trauma is flight. You move away from the trauma. You do not fight first. We used to say fight, flight, freeze. We never used fawn, at least not when I was back in the day, right? But the first response is to danger is that and I want to respect your time, so I'm just checking the time, is that we move away. If it is no more than moving back, that's your flight, right? You're moving away from it. The second response, if you cannot move away from danger, right? Because the brain is triggered, then it's like, I'm going to fight my way out of this. Mm-hmm. Right? And so I'm going to go after. And it doesn't matter how big the opponent is. The brain is saying, the amygdala is saying, protect me, protect me, protect me. And let me go back, because one of the things I was going to say is, I really believe when this is our God source, because this is the thing that tells us to move away. And I'm saying God source because I'm not certain of everyone's belief system, but as a Christian, it makes kind of a lot of good sense that this little thing right here can tell every other part what to do. So if it's saying, okay, and it's so quick, right? Matter of fact, my snapping of the fingers is slow compared to how this works. But it's so quick that it says, are you in danger? Yes, you are. How, okay, do I move away, move first? Do I fight and defeat my enemy? If I cannot beat it, then what happens is I freeze, which means I'm just staying there. I'm stuck. You will see people who I'll say like fires, that when they can't get out, they can't move, and you don't know. You're like, come on, Maxine, come on, but you're in freeze mode. Your body literally shuts down where it is. And fawn is a very interesting dynamic in that when we look over at some of the trauma responses, things like people pleasing, right? So I'm going to, since I can't get away, since I can't beat it, I have to stay here. Now what I'm doing is I'm really giving up myself, not because I want to, but because my brain is saying, I can't speak, I can't fight it, right? So how can I at least keep what I can safe? Which is always, when doing the research, is always this amygdala. How can I keep this amygdala safe? The amygdala will also send out, so we have other traumatic responses, like for ladies who have had babies, right? That is a traumatic experience to the body. Although natural, it is a traumatic experience for your physical body. It's supposed to happen. And that's why a lot of times the brain will send, the amygdala will send signals to the baby, because the baby is pulling from the host, you. Okay. But things like the pain of delivering the baby, cesareans, I did a great workshop for athletes, and I was the demo. And me having surgery on my ankle that I broke and have pins in, we processed the trauma of that the medical trauma. We have pre-verbal trauma, and we go back to even intrauterine trauma. So inside the mom, if there is for me, I work in child welfare. So my moms who have experienced domestic violence and they're pregnant, those babies are experiencing that trauma. So their bodies are already setting up the adrenaline, right? While they're inside. And so, Dr. Maxine, when you talk about the epigenetics, that's one of the ways we know, because our babies may have heightened fear responses. Okay. Any questions? All right. Y'all ain't no questions.
I find it just fascinating and interesting. I do.
Yeah, me too. I love how led to do this kind of work. Wish I had known this 20 years ago. Because it is so powerful in understanding. And I know Dr. Parks and I were in a training in September, I think it was, where we talk about even spirituality and trauma, right? Dr. Parks does something with finances. There's a whole piece around money trauma and how we see that. I would talk to the pastors up here a lot of times, and I say to them, you need to deal with your issues around money if you want to deal with the issues around your congregation's concerns about money. Because that's a whole trauma, that's a whole nother workshop. But anyway, right? And so when we think about how, I'm sorry, I heard someone.
Susan have a question.
No, I was just going to make a statement. I would be very much interested in knowing about the spirituality and financial. And I know we're not here to do that, but I like that God connection piece of the amygdala.
And also going back to our historical roots, when we think about the enslaved, right, who did all the work, because there's no difference between the house slave and the field slave. Everybody was traumatized regardless. But when we think about it, we see what our European counterparts, how money played a role for, because they even have money trauma, right? And so how that played a part of how they became anxious about money. And when we think about the spirituality piece, then what ends up happening is think about the fact that how we were introduced to God. Slaves, obey your master, right? Sometimes we still cringe at that, but not understanding the contextual piece of what that means. But how was that particular portion of scripture used against us? Okay. I had a brief video I want you all to watch. And this is the trauma response of a bear. It's only about 2 minutes, if that. And so I want you to just watch this and we'll have a little discussion about it.
Dr. Langford, is there supposed to be sound? Are you all hearing sound?
I'm not hearing sound.
Um,
I can't hear.
Dr. Langford, is there supposed to be sound?
Yes.
Okay, we're not hearing sound, so if you could just
Okay.
take us back a little bit.
Sure. Let me see here. Give me 1 second because I may
Just restart the PowerPoint, hit that button when you go to share screen, hit that round button so that the sound will.
the remote control.
No, stop sharing.
Okay.
Okay, now share, hit the share button, and at the bottom, there are two buttons.
Share sound.
Share sound, yes, ma'am.
Gotcha. Okay, so let me do that. I'll tell y'all. This technical stuff. It's interesting. Okay. Sorry about that. Can you hear it?
Right there. Looks like a fatty. We'll go for that one, Dennis. Yeah, oh yeah. Absolutely perfect. He decides to get a bit bigger next and so on, yes. Holy snapper. If you watch that animal after he finishes convulsing, you'll see, because he's aware of the fact that we're all around him, and it's a very stressful experience for an animal like a polar bear. After he settles down, and then he'll start doing a couple of deep breaths, and then he'll breathe really nicely, and it'll really... Now, look, here he goes. See how he's breathing there now? You can see, so that even though it looks a little unpleasant to look at him convulsing like that, in fact, it lets off all that stress, and he then is able to relax and sleep the thing off.
Okay. So let's see if we can get this one. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about that polar bear. What do you think?
He definitely showed signs of trauma. But I found it was interesting to watch how the body experienced trauma and how it started to settle and release through breathing and relax. I can't say he was relaxed. I don't want to use that word because to me that's too mild, but just the way how the body reacted. And it was interesting to read at the very end that humans and zoo animals don't go through that. I just felt powerful. I know I just love it. I love just learning about this.
And one of the reasons why, Dr. Maxine, zoo animals and humans don't go through that experience because they are constantly engaging with humans. So as opposed to them relaxing, their parasympathetic system relaxing, it never has an opportunity to relax. It is one of the reasons why when we think about, I will use all Africans who live in America, we never get to relax. We have TV, we have social media, we walk outside our homes. Even when we think about the processing of the brain, remember the brain is sending signals to say, send cortisone, send adrenaline. Our systems have never had an opportunity to reduce the amount of adrenaline in our individual systems, let alone collective systems. We ain't even talking about the impact of metaphysics, how we impact each other with our own energy. Everything has energy in it. It's a natural thing. It is the way this world has been created. But when we think about things like arthritis, arthritis is inflammation. It is the brain's, the amygdala saying, I don't want all that fluid up here. So I'm going to send it to the furthest parts of the body until that is too much for that. And that's why you will see people with lots of inflamed tissue, right? And so for every physical ailment, it starts in the brain.
So I wonder if that does explain as a people, and just not all of us, of course, but in my background, why people turn to other substances to relieve themselves.
Other substances, if you're talking about things like marijuana and alcohol, certainly. But then it also is one of the reasons why we have such addiction to pain medication, because what is happening is we are trying to relieve the pain versus what is causing the pain, the underlying issue of the pain. My mom has lung cancer. And she had back pain for almost 20 some years. I used Brainspotting to help her address the underlying cause of what is causing the pain. And she went to, we call it a squeeze lemon zero, right? So now when she calls me, she's like, I did my Brainspotting. She used to say, I did my brainstorming. I said, okay, I'm not going, she 80 years old, y'all. So I ain't going to be saucy with my mom. But when you get to understand how this works, there are mechanisms by which you can reduce the inflammation in the body. And think about as we put our focus on why we go to Senegal, why we do the work that we do. Because if you have the ability to, first of all, and I love it, for me, it was revelation. I see you, Dr. Parks, that all of the things that happen 10, 12 years before me was a setup for the people, because now we can talk about mental health. We done fed our people. We've clothed our people. We've given sight to the blind, right? Those with leprosy. So now we can talk about impact on mental health. Dr. Parks.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for the information that is being sharing. And I think along the lines with you, and I'm hoping you're going to go here just a little bit, just in terms of this particular treatment modality, in terms of being able to teach the people how to heal themselves, because America is a capitalistic society. So they do not want you to know this information, because if you begin to start utilizing our own African-centered healing processes that were stripped away, but being able to return back to utilizing those processes, then it shuts down the pharmaceutical companies, when we're talking about a lot of prescription in terms of medication or other entities that were set up to try to keep us to be inflamed or keep us in an unhealthy state.
Mm-hmm. No, why are you starting trouble?
So let me chime in a little bit.
Sure.
Dr. Parks, you really starting stuff. Because taking it a step further, what we observe when we are in Senegal is people asking for the Western medicine because they have been conditioned to think that if it comes from the West, it's good, it's right. And so I remember clearly Laverne and I, we were in a hotel one day, and this gentleman, he was asking us for medicine for his child. And so we referred him back to moringa to say, hey, do you know that moringa has these healing properties? Yeah, this. And he was like, no, I didn't know that. And this is stuff that grows wild there. And just taking moringa, for instance, people from the West, they go to the African countries, the tropical countries, they harvest moringa, they ground it in the powder, they sell it as pills back to the people where they cultivated it from. And so it's a whole system that is conditioned to really lose sight of what we have, what is natural, what is healthy for us, and to buy into this capitalistic society and societal thinking. So it's deep.
And and that's why when we talk about, oh, I'm sorry, I heard somebody.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say money and greed.
Well, think about the trauma behind money and greed, right? Think about how if the Europeans are taking pills and they're getting better quickly, then, but I never have an opportunity to use my indigenous healing practices. That's really what the Hush Harbor and things were really about. The dancing, we're now moving back to, doing dancing. I think it's amazing how people from other countries can squat down for so long. We go and watch them have lunch, and they're squatting down on them knees. My knees ain't nowhere, and ankles can't hold none of this, right? And so what ends up happening is that is strengthening their muscles. The fact that they are sitting communally is helping the brain to say, I'm safe because I'm with my friends and my family. I've seen them say, oh, come on, because they got a huge pot of food. Come on, tap, with a little spoon. Come on, you get in here and get some of this, right? And so when we talk about going back to our traditional ways of healing, we would use the sky. But Europeans told us that was demonic. We will, I know, don't even start it. We will use the stars. We will go sit under the trees. Remember, there's a prophetess who is known because people will come to her because she was sitting under the tree. She ruled under the tree. She was in nature. There's a whole science. Thank you, Johns Hopkins, for reminding us that the mere fact that when our feet touch the ground, the electronic reverberation of just the earth heals us from underneath our feet. I did an ionic bath Friday, and on my Facebook page, trigger alert. It's a little mechanism with literally a pinch of salt that pulls toxins out of the body. And the darker it is, you can tell which organ it comes from. But those are traditional things that help us to heal. Our walking was healing because we were closer to the earth. We had more sunlight. And so our brains and the optic nerve, which is connected to the middle part of our brains, was able to take that light and process the light to tell the brain to send the healing signals to say, go over here and release that. That could be going to the bathroom. That could be coughing up some phlegm. It could be anything. But let's get rid of that so that we're not sending all of that adrenaline to the rest of the body. If you were to take your finger and touch certain parts of your body, you'll be sore because your adrenaline has been running so high that your body never has an opportunity to relax. Dr. Parks?
Yes, because I saw Anne had put in about the bilateral stimulation in terms of movement. Can you also speak to it from a sound perspective in terms of with that bilateral stimulation? And the thing that comes to me is when we used to hear the African drums. Or if you're in, Christians, say within a church, as soon as they play a B Hammond chord or the drums together in terms of music, where that would also bring into the healing process as well.
So there is a technique, the mere fact that when we are moving, our heads are moving and our eyes are moving, that's bilateral. So bilateral means it hits the brain, the left side, then the right side, left side, right side. There are also things called solfeggio music. And I don't have it with me up here, but the bilateral music, the way it's a specialized music, it's amazing. You can get it on YouTube, you get it everywhere. But it's a specially formalized music that is designed to hit those parts of the brain. Sometimes it's rhythmic, but then it'll shift and the brain doesn't know that it has shifted. It just then goes in, oh, I gotta go this way. Oh, I gotta go this way, right? And so it helps the brain. What's happening is firing those neurons. It's a little deeper than what I had planned to go into, but I'm glad you mentioned it because you can put on headphones, play it at its lowest level, and I would not recommend that you sleep in it. The only reason why is because I used to sleep in it and I couldn't hear the fire in my house. So I always caution people to make sure that you put it on for a couple of hours and then turn it off. But it fires left, right, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, 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 right. It fires that way. So your brain is literally doing that. And so it somewhat, I'll say, confuses because it's like looking for it. And then it makes your brain calm itself down. So that it then brings homeostasis to the brain. That's what the bilateral music does. Solfeggios do something a little different because solfeggios go to the cellular portion of, I love solfeggios, of that. It's same concept, but it hits a little different. And I'm glad you brought that up because I had this conversation with the headphones. It's one of the reasons why we really want to kind of stay away from the inserted earbuds. Not that they're not the best, but there's something called aftershocks, which sit right on the outside of your ear, and it sends the vibration through the bone, which hits the brain in a different way. Not really expensive, but I do everything with mine. I talk on them, but I use those as well. So when you talk about the music, and I want to address something. The drums themselves have hertz. Every sound has a hertz to it. My voice has a hertz. Everything has, your computers have a hertz. Everything has a hertz to it, which is a sound wave. And when we are listening to the traditional drums, the hertz hit the brain in a different way. Okay. Same thing. You said chord. So is that the shouting music?
Yes, definitely. In terms of we talk about in terms of like African church and spirituality, it in certain places, there is a certain particular chord or rhythmic chord that is hit at that particular time when the spirit hits. So it's that
So with those chords, that also has an impact on the amygdala. You have learned that when we hear these chords, this is when freedom, liberation comes. And so that dance is connected to the sound, which is connected to the release of tension, which you see people crying, hear people shouting. When you hear people shout, that is a release of a body tension, right? That whole, even doing this, that is telling the brain there is a liberation, right? There is, and you can relax because the amygdala is saying, in this moment, you are safe. Any other question? You still have your hand up. Did you have another question?
This is so good. I'm just sitting here like, oh my gosh, like, wow. Because we were both in that particular conference back in September, and I'm hoping there would be a space where we're able to bring this to Black faith community and really understanding that particular space in the way that you just mentioned it. And it was something about when you talked about the headphones or like the ear pods that you put in the ear, and right there outside of the ear, how that connects with the different chakra points on our particular body. So I was just looking at the amazement of how we were designed and how our bodies were designed as instruments of healing, and really understanding what each particular point is on our body and what it does, and how connectively together, how the body can really not only keep score, but also heal itself. And so being able to bring this to our community in a language that they understand, because I think, as Ann mentioned beforehand, or maybe you, oftentimes what we know that is second nature to us, or what was our path of healing, has been stripped and now packaged in a way that it was called and demonized back to us. And so when you talk about neuroscience, or you talk about Brainspotting, all these things, it's like, oh my gosh, that's so demonic, or so much new age, or this and that. That's not when reality, that's not the case. So I just find this very helpful and even more understanding in terms of what we do, because we're doing it already.
And we've been doing it. And if you really think about historically, we were the first people to do it, right? We were literally the first people to do it. And I know here we have the body keeps the score, but it's keeping the good score too. It remembers those indigenous things. It remembers those. It remembered. I was saying to someone the other day who had diarrhea, and I said, just get yourself some flour, boil some water, skim that off, drink that, and then see how you feel. In less than 2 hours, they were good. It's the same thing that my grandmother gave me. When Ann talks about, I can't tell you how much tea I got in this house, but if I don't feel good, I'm going to get me some ginger, some honey, and some soursop. Or so Ann told me, oh, drink some Engare. You're right. We just have to be reminded of that. And while our folk on the continent are moving towards Western medicine, we're moving back to our traditional roots. Pastors used to preach, don't do yoga. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Yeah. So those are the kinds of things. The body is keeping those scores, but it's keeping the good scores too. And that's why I'm saying, when we have those pleasant memories, oh, I remember when Ann told me, and I don't feel good, drink some Engare. When I drink the Engare, I'm like, oh, that feels the warmth, the taste, and then I feel good too. It's there. It remembers that. But what ends up happening is, and what we're trying to work on, so and part of this presentation is really understanding what our colleagues as Project Safety Net board members and family, what we're going and what we're doing, and how that is impacting the people, our people that we encounter. Right? Okay. So I'm gonna move this one.
Just real quick while you're moving on,
Yeah.
you said the bilateral music, and then you said something like a figgio. What was
Solfeggio. Don't ask me how to spell it right now, Laverne,
Okay.
because it's S-E-G-G. Can somebody look that up for me? YouTube has a lot of solfeggios, and they will tell you whether or not it's for sleep. Whether bilaterals, they'll do the same thing, whether or not you use it for sleep, whether or not you can use it for concentration, whether you can use it for cellular healing. And it's not a one and done. You really have to get into, just like that we use our prescriptions, the doctor tell us take it once a day as needed. That's what I tell my people to take it once a day as needed. Take it twice a day as needed, or just take it as needed. Because the solfeggios and the bilateral music, there is no contraindications. You just don't want to listen to it while you're driving because it's going to relax you. Okay. So I just want to move on for the sake of time, because we have an exercise that I want us to do. And I have this, I did talk about the interuteral. So there's an attachment that is always occurring between the embryo and the mom, but there's also an attachment between the embryo and the dad, because they're the same cells coming together. We have the interuterine and the preverbal trauma that doesn't get addressed, and preverbal before we can talk. And then we have this association where we talk about people who kind of separate from their own bodies. And that is a way that's also a fawn response to simply say, I can't physically move anywhere, so I'll move mentally. And so people can learn, can either be, I'm going to say, use the word forced, in the sense that to keep themselves safe. And then once you learn that that is a way to keep yourself safe, then you're able to tap into that. Because something is saying that you are in danger. Okay. But the association is a protective factor. Okay. All right, here we go. Brainspotting. Where you look affects how you feel. This is Dr. David Grant. He's a licensed clinical social worker, and he is the developer of Brainspotting neuroexperiential therapy. Brainspotting is a strength-based, non-oppressive, spiritual, integrative, expansive neuroexperiential meaning neurological, because we're using this brain, and experience. And it works on, as I said, the trauma as well as creativity, right? So we don't necessarily, we can always address the trauma and the healing by going to the creative side. So if I say, well, hey, let's think about what color shoes you want to wear with that particular outfit. You can associate a traumatic event without going straight to the trauma event. I liken it to what my consultant, Shelley Bates, said, where with the resource side, we are addressing the trauma and we're like skimming off the claver till we get down to the buttermilk, I think it is, versus going deep into the traumatic event and scooping it out. You're still going to get to what you need to. It's the route in which you do it. And so optimally, what we want is we want to go from dysregulation, which is that activation, which is that triggering response, to regulation. How do we balance this out? So with Brainspotting, And I love Zala. I remember watching the spelling bee when she did that. And what she did was she actually used Brainspotting, which is a one of them. We have what's called inside window, outside window, and Gazespotting. Those are the foundational pieces of Brainspotting. And she used a fixed eye position to locate the winning, how to spell the winning word. Because remember what I said, the brain has captured everything, what you have seen, heard, smelled, tasted, or felt. So what she did was, having seen the word, she didn't know she was using Brainspotting, but what she did was she shifted her eyes, and when her eyes shifted, it sent her optic nerve shifted the amygdala to look for the word. We do it naturally. Where are my keys? Wait a minute. If you notice, when I was looking for my headphones, I shifted my head and I looked down. My eyes went with them. So Brainspotting uses fixed eye position to locate either a trauma pocket or resource. But the interesting thing is it connects that issue thing, creativity, whatever you want to utilize it for, to a body sensation. So and we're going to do something with that. With Brainspotting, literally what the practitioner does is we sit back and we say, what do you want to work on today? Right? That could be a coach, that could be a therapist. My sister is a program manager. So when they have their retreats for her staff, she uses Brainspotting in terms of what they're going to be doing for their next year's projects. And so what ends up happening is we say, what do you want to work on? And as your brain begins to think about that issue, you'll notice a sensation. And maybe, Ann, what I'll do is I'll put the exercise now, since we're talking about it. Okay. So thinking about an issue, nothing too deep. I'm going to open this up a little bit. I would like for you to just think about an issue and notice in your body if you feel any activation. We call it activation. It could be tension. And once you have that, I want you to give it a number from 0 to 10. 0 being not at all, 10 being the highest activation. Remember, we're not going to pick a big issue, right?
Can we stop sharing, Dr. Paula?
I will. Let's see. Oh. Okay. And so I want you to pay attention to where your eyes land. Look around your room, right? Use your space. Thinking about your issue. And when you have the highest point of activation around your issue, I want you to bookmark that. Give it a number and bookmark it in that room. And now what I want you to do is, thinking about your issue, I want you to look around your space, but this time I want you to find where you are the most calm, grounded, or neutral. Just notice. Okay, give that a number. So you have 2 spaces. You have your issue. Now, what I'd like for you to do is I want you to shift to the calmest point in your room. And I want you to notice your body where you are calm, grounded, and neutral. Notice what you're looking at. Notice your body. Bring your attention to your body. And just hold it there for a minute. See, Dr. Vanetta has her eyes closed. If you need to close your eyes, close them. Just notice. Focusing on your calm, grounded, and neutral. Notice any pictures, any words coming up in your mind. Just hold it there for a minute. Notice in your body. Bring your attention to the most calm, grounded, and neutral place in your body. Hold it there for a few minutes. Your mind should wander. It's okay. It's doing what it needs to do. Just bring it back to the calmest place. Yeah. That's what your body is doing. So knowing that that is bookmarked there, just like for you, take a deep breath in your nose and out your mouth. And take another breath. And one more because you deserve it. When you're ready, take your time and just come back to the space. You want to share. What did they notice? Did you notice anything? If anyone can share what when they went to the most activated space, at least the number from 0 to 10.
So I'll share a little bit. So so I'll just share what my topic was as well. So I feel stuck, just like in general, I just feel stuck. So looking around the room for me, it was I have a bunch of hangers up in the upper right hand corner of my room. That's where I felt very activated. My throat started closing. And then, as you said, to find the calmest place, for me, it was the bottom of my left foot when I was looking down there. And I felt this like tug of war to constantly go back to the throat closing, and you every time you said go back, if you it's okay if you wrestle, it's okay, but just go back to the calmest place. So now even when I go back to the original location that I felt triggered,
Mhm.
it was probably like a 7, it's probably like a 1 or a 2 now.
Oh, nice.
So that location no longer triggers that ear. It's very, very little. So I noticed that difference, at least for me.
Thank you. And you also did something that we call vergence, where we go back to that trigger point, and then we go back from the calm ground to the neutral. And going back, that's exactly what's happening to your brain when we were talking about bringing that regulation. And so it's like, I'm not safe, but I am safe. I'm not safe, but I am safe. I'm not safe, but I am safe. I'm not, I am safe, right? And so it brings down that from that 7 to, what was your in number again? 2 to a 2. So what the brain has said is, I'm in this place of, for Laverne, stuck, right? And when I think about being stuck, that can be triggering to my brain. However, that in my calm, grounded, and neutral, there I can begin to dislodge that trauma or that activation, so that I can create what do I need to do to slowly, may not be, oh, I'm free, but it may be slowly liberating you from that place of stuff. Make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else want to share? Okay. So one of the things that we end up doing with brain spotting is using those fixed eye positions, right? Sometimes our tool is a pointer, literally a pointer, right? So I'll take this down. I actually found my pointer got returned to me after the fight. I couldn't find it. So I was like, where is it? So this is the brain spotting tool, right? Sometimes I use creative pencil tops and things like that. What ends up happening is with brain spotting, let's see if I can get this to do it. Well, I'll use this is a little bigger. What ends up happening is I'll say to the person I'm working with, if I put the pointer here, what are you noticing? Thinking about their issue. If I put the pointer here, what are you noticing? Remember, I asked you about a number, 0 to 10. And if I put the pointer here, what are you noticing? So those are those fixed eye positions, because as I am shifting my eyes, thinking about my issue, my brain is processing that. Oh, I really feel it right here. Oh, I don't feel anything at all right here. And so when using brain spotting, I don't have to stay here where I'm a 10. I can work on the same issue where I don't feel anything at all, but the processing of the brain still occurs. Sometimes it's too much for the person. So I won't start on the highest level, because I want them to understand that we can ease into it. We're still going to get to where we need to be. Okay. And so brain spotting says where you look affects how you feel. Again, thank you, Anne, for putting in that. And the reason for the numbers is not for me as the clinician or the practitioner. The reason is so that you get to feel and tap into what your body is doing. So as you notice, remember those pleasant feelings. As you notice, well, wait, if I look over here, I really do feel calm. Or if I look over here, I can answer this question. That's what I teach my students, right? So when I look over here, so let me look over here. I have the material because my brain has already seen it. So now I know what the answer is. And so the brain will go find it. Okay, that's the amazing part of brain spotting. When it talks about strength-based, when it talks about non-oppressive, I don't say, you're going to work on this issue. And next week, you're going to work on this issue. Brain spotting says, what do you want to work on? Because we could come in and say, let's use Laverne as an example. I really want to work on me being stuck. Okay, we start there. But that may not be where your brain wants you to go. And I do what we call stay in the tail of the comet. Where you take me is where I go. And I get to hold the space for you. That's the other part of brain spotting that says there's a dual relationship or dual attunement that I'm holding space for you. It's almost like sis, I'm gonna pray for you. Right? I'm gonna pray for you. And as I'm holding that, you said you're going over here for this job interview, not a problem. What time you gotta go? I'm gonna hold, so we are in alignment energetically. And that's the other part that we need to understand about brain spotting, because brain spotting says you're not on this journey by yourself. Okay. Thank you. And the dual attunement is really that, again, when we think about how the world, the earth, we are created, it is all energy. Everything has energy. Even Amy G. Dollar has energy. Right? And so that's what brain spotting does. And that's where we go when we go to Senegal, and we've done brain spotting there. And what we will be doing as we expand brain spotting, it's expansive. We have brain spotting with something called parts. We all have various parts of us. You have brain spotting in education. You have brain spotting in spirituality. So usually when I go to mass, I'm brain spotting while I'm listening to my pastor preach. And so the revelation comes a little different, because I have a fixed eye position and I'm hearing what's being said, but my brain is processing what it needs. Any questions thus far before we go back to the presentation?
Just real quick, two things. So the brain spotting we just did, that's the gaze spotting, right?
What I had you do is a gaze spot, yes. Laverne went through the training. Gaze spot with vergence. But you naturally did vergence. I didn't say, oh, go here. If I were asking you to do vergence, I like to let people do vergence on their own, because you're going to do it anyway. Because you're going to become curious about, oh, I'm calm over here. I wonder what's really going on over here in this stuckness. Oh, it's still there. I like it here. Right. Second question.
Yes. Question number 2, when you just talked about being in church and finding your location. So when you are gaze spotting while you're hearing the word, are you looking to, again, you're feeling the highest emotion, where you have the highest sense, or how is just?
It depends on what I feel I need that day. Okay. Sometimes when I go in and I'm doing my gaze spotting, we have Christ in our stained glass window. That's one of my favorite places to look. And he has the Indian mudra, which is this is a piece, actually, and it's Trinity. And so sometimes I look at his hand. If I am like, oh, I have this presentation to do, what do I need to focus on? Okay, thinking about the presentation, what am I noticing in my body? And so it may be my calm, because as long as you stay heightened, you have to work through that to get the answer. You got to bring that down to get the answer. And each level that you go down, the answer comes up. So a lot of times I work on the calm. With my clients, I tell them to work on the calm outside. But for the activation side, we work on the hard stuff in group or therapy or what have you.
That makes sense.
Because I want them to have that support. Anybody else? Okay. All right. So we're almost finished. Let's go back to Sharon. This one. Okay. With project safety nets, and the use of brain spotting and other interventions, I will say. We really look for and have seen individual, family, community, agency transformation. And for me, as like I said, I've been there the last 5 years, global transformation. This year, we were able to, as Anne said, host the first brain spotting training in Senegal. So to me, that's global transformation in the sense that we had not just Senegalese, but we had Tunisians and Moroccans, and they're now taking this and expanding this in Senegal. Some folk, of course, when the students will be finishing their residency, and so they'll be taking this along with them. And so that transformative aspect of using brain spotting globally helps the organization to continue, I will say, its mission in healing in a different way. But also knowing that this is a Christian organization ministering in a different way. Right? All right, let's see. All right. Oh, we just did that. We just did that one. Okay. So actually, I'm at the end of the presentation, so I can stop sharing and I'll take any questions, comments, criticisms. I always say I can take them all. And yeah.
I just want to say thank you. It's a topic that I will continue to research, and I would love if we could do more of this and to learn. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you. And as an educator, I think it's really powerful to be able to do this because I know that you focus on education, Dr. Maxine, and helping our students to recognize that when they are at their calmest, they can retain the information and bring it back up.
Right.
So it increases the ability, it decreases the anxiety to bring up all of that material that they studied to be successful academically.
Yes. And you know, another point is that dealing and interacting with adults, whether they're family members or just adults in general who have experienced trauma, but it was never dealt with. And I'm finding, and it really breaks my heart, but it's really a passion of mine that I have. And thank you for this information.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm going to bring up the fact that you just did a whole gaze spot when you said it breaks my heart. Your eyes went up.
Yes.
Right. And so we get to see those reflexes on people's faces. One of the things here in Maryland is utilizing funds to be able to bring this to community healers. So brain spotting, you don't have to be a therapist to do, right? And we can make sure that our community healers have access to this. But not just here, but that's one of the things I've been working on for the last year for Maryland, but that's a nationwide and internationally. We have now this, access to a virtual space. So this is something that we can bring anywhere. And one of the things that I like to do is to teach my clients, because you may not always have access to me, but you will always have access to Brainspotting. So I've created therapeutic tool belts for them. And what I say is, we talk about these toolboxes, but the toolboxes you can sit down and walk away from. The tool belt you're going to have on you. So what tools are you using? Use them constantly, use them consistently. If I write you a prescription, I'm writing you a prescription for Gazespotting. I'm writing you a prescription for journaling. So how are you using that? With my players, when they get hurt, they've been getting hurt since they were little playing football. that's in their bodies, that's in their physical body, but it's also in their brain. So as we teach our kids who come particularly from very poor social economic situations, we all in domestic violence, things like that, foster care. That's where I work, foster care. How do we utilize the brain spotting to improve our community, healing it one brain at a time? Because though as we are healing them, we have a better sense of having a community that can work collaboratively, that can be productive, and that can be effective. Okay. Anyone else?
Dr. Langford, I also think it's a good tool for the community healers or leaders to have for themselves, to use for themselves, because our community leaders, operate on fumes a lot of times because they are in the trenches. They experience vicarious trauma all the time. And so I think it's a really effective tool for them to learn as a part of taking care of themselves so that they can care for the community.
Absolutely. And remember, they have trauma that they have never addressed before they became like these leaders. I would love to do a brain spotting session with the mayor of Baltimore, right? I must say I love him in the sense of the fact that as a young Black man, he's the youngest mayor we've ever had. He put himself out there. And he constantly puts himself out. Whether he makes the right decisions, that's a whole nother story. But he could certainly utilize that brain spotting to improve his effectiveness as mayor and decision making. I know we have a little time. I want to say and reiterate the fact that brain spotting can be used for pain management, anxiety, for I was going to say trauma and anxiety, pain management, academic and performance enhancement, even job related enhancement. I wish my agency would allow me to do something for that. So we got a lot of stuff going on over there. But there are many things that you can use brain spotting for. Dr. Parks, even preachers for preparing their sermons. Actors. I just sent something to Winston Dukes saying, come on, let me brain spot you. And so we'll see what he says. Y'all know Winston Dukes, right? Y'all don't know who Winston? Wakanda Forever. He is the Baraka warrior.
Umbatu.
Umbatu, yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
and I was gonna say, brain spotting, just hearing from you, it sounds like for those of the faith-based community, a way to enhance one's spiritual practice and within their own particular, time, in terms of just that whole contemplative prayer and spiritual disciplines that individuals may ascribe to, depending on their faith or their God source or their understanding, but one's own spirituality and spiritual disciplines and practices. And
absolutely.
I know you didn't mention it, but also for those who are struggling with any type of problem gambling.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I talked to Dr. Debbie about that too, bringing that over there as well. Yeah. That's, I mean, when you think about brain spotting and spirituality, particularly how, again, I will say I am a faithful Christian Catholic brain spotting, tongue talking, worshiper. But you have to also think about how do we feel when certain things are preached to us. And we have been told that for so long. For the longest time, it was money is the root of all evil. Now we done made that shift to, no, it's the love of money. But we forget there's a whole scripture that says money is the answer to all prayers. on this realm anyway. So yeah, so those are the kind, I mean, there's even when we go in to understanding not just scripture, but what is your connection to God, right? And and that's the God of your understanding, and how have you been introduced to God, right? So, yeah, Laverne.
Yeah, I know we went through the exercise, but you talk about the tool belt. Is there
Mhm.
one or two things you can give us that we can walk away with that as a resource that we can use once this is over, since everyone's not fully trained?
Sure. The one thing that I would give you to put in your tool belt is gaze spotting. When you have a question, the brain loves questions, but it don't like questions. But it loves questions because it has to find the answer. Because when it finds the answer, then it can go back to its equilibrium. So the one thing I would say is, if you have a question, to use your gaze spotting and think about, so matter of fact, I was getting ready to do something and I looked up here at my calendar when I was trying to think of a question. I looked up here, what do I have to do to finish this project that I have at work? Or what is it that, what's my itinerary for the day? That's always a good one. When you wake up, even before you get out of the bed, you can do this. And just sit there and know this. Shift your eyes to wherever you feel you're calm, grounded, and neutral. So use that natural gaze spotting. What are we going to do for the day? What do we need to do for the day? For me, the first thing I say is, "Oh, thank you, God, that sleep was good." And then I go into, what am I going to do today, Lord? And then I just gaze and I sit there for a minute. And if my mind wanders, I'm like, oh, I don't know why I'm thinking about oatmeal. Well, oatmeal came up because maybe you got to have breakfast for, oatmeal for breakfast. Okay, we'll get some oatmeal. What are we going to do today? Oh, I got boxes to do. Okay. And then you can create your list of things that way. And don't and use gaze spotting anytime, right? Whether it be asking a question. I use gaze spotting sometimes because it becomes quick. And the more you do it, it becomes quicker. Do I turn to the left or do I go straight my regular route? If I'm drawn to the left, if my eyes are drawn to the left, that may be telling me to go to the left. So gaze spotting is the one thing that I would like for you to put in your tool belts. Begin to, even if I have on my, I use dry erase on my bathroom mirrors. And so even if you put gaze spot there, or for me, I have a list of things that I want to accomplish, right? I put that there and I look at it and I gaze spot while I'm brushing my teeth. So use your gaze spotting. Okay.
Thanks. That was very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. You are welcome.
Susan, did you have
You
something?
know, like that, she pretty much answered it, because I took a spiritual, I am at a different church. So we did a spiritual assessment, and I just wanted to think about the top 3 that I came out, and I think I'd like to do the gaze spotting to help me. Because one of them surprised me. I'm like, okay, I don't know who that is, but okay. Everything's possible, right?
So Susan, can I do this? Do you mind?
No.
Okay. You said no, you don't mind, or yes, you do mind.
No, I don't mind. Yes.
Okay. Because when you said, I want you to think about that one that kind of surprised you. Because when you said it surprised me, you said it surprised me, and you looked down to your right.
Yeah.
Notice in your body how you feel about that one that surprised you.
Okay.
And so that's how you can use it as your gaze spotting, because what ends up happening is, what did I look at when I said that? And go to that space and just hold it there. Okay. Noticing the calm, grounded, and neutral in your body. That's how you use it.
And kind of process what my mind and body is. That's good, because I've always been told I'm very nonverbal. So I engage spotting,
Well, being nonverbal doesn't necessarily mean your brain isn't processing.
Okay.
You process with less words.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Yep.
Dr. Paula, I would love to check in with our student alone to see how this information landed for you, and if you've heard anything that might be able to help you with your study.
Definitely thank you for asking that question, by the way. Definitely what Dr. Langford just said with gaze finding. So for me personally, I think with just waking up and just focusing in class. So last semester, especially, I had a hard time waking up. But this semester, I read a book that told me to focus on one thing. So with that point being said, with like gaze finding, as soon as I wake up, I focus on one thing. I try not to let my mind wander. Be like, okay, so today you have a quiz. You already studied for that quiz. You don't want that study to go to waste. So just get up and do it. Just get up, get up, get up. So just focusing on that one thing helps me get up. Now, once I'm out of bed, everything else will handle itself. So I'm really looking forward to like building up on this. This past week has been very successful. So I'm glad I'm able to put a name to it, because I was just, calling it something that's going to help me this semester. So now I have the tool for it. So thank you very much.
And along the other thing is as you are studying, if you gaze spot, finding that calm, grounded, and neutral at the very beginning before you study your material around the issue that I'm studying my material. Where am I feeling calm, grounded, and neutral?
Okay.
Sit with that for a few minutes. Notice that, right? Study your material.
You spell your home address.
Natalie, hold on. I got to mute you for 1 second.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. When you begin studying whatever material you're studying, notice how you feel about each question, each section. Go to your calm, grounded, and neutral, right? Go back to the material, and then also you want to chunk it, right? So you want to take a portion of it. My mama calling me. You want to take a portion of it. Notice how you feel about it. Then go anytime you feel, oh, I can't figure this out, I can't remember this. That's your moment right there. That's where it's telling you, go to your gaze spot, go to calm, grounded, and neutral. Notice how you feel. See if you can bring the calm, grounded, and neutral up in the anxiety day. Always focusing on the calm, grounded, and neutral that's in your body. That's the thing. We can think about calm, grounded, and neutral, but if we're not associating it with, and it could literally be the tip of your nose, it was Laverne's feet. It could be your earlobe, right? So always focusing on that calm, grounded, and neutral, and then do it at the end. So you have your gaze spotting at the beginning, during, and at the end. And then any other time you want to.
I have a quick follow-up question. So just to clarify, do you think just breaking it up into pieces and like doing it in small time frames helps make this process more effective?
Absolutely. Any study, when you think about neuroscience, anytime you chunk something down, you can't eat a whole pie. You eat it slice by slice.
Okay.
So anytime you chunk something down, it doesn't become overwhelming to your amygdala.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Dr. Parks.
Quick question. With brain spotting, is this considered to be like a non-talkative therapy, where like if you come into a therapeutic session where a client is not doing so much, talking, but just focusing on what the activity is in that particular section? So, you have your traditional talk therapy where you come into the session and you're just doing a whole bunch of talking. But then there are sessions where you may say, okay, we're going to do brain spotting, where it may not be as a lot of talking because the brain and that, the client's actually processing that particular information there.
So for me, it depends on the client. There are clients that come want to talk, and they may, just like they Susan did, they may say, well, I don't know about that. And I said, oh, I noticed that you looked at, can we explore that a little bit? And they may talk through the session. And I may say, just notice that. You know, can we spend a few minutes? Oh, I noticed that you said that really surprised me. Thinking about that surprising you, think about anybody. So it really depends on we have more, some clients who are, verbal processors. And then we have some clients who are not very much, they don't talk a lot. I have clients who will go 30, 40 minutes, right? They won't say anything. And then they'll sit up and say, oh, I got it now. We could have been talking about, they may have come in with, I had some bad fish last week. It really, in essence, by the end of the time they get to it, it was like, I really remember when I had a bad experience going to express myself to my supervisor. So it really depends on the client. Sometimes you slow them down to say, hey, just notice that a little bit. Can we notice that a little bit? And I always ask the question. Let's see what comes up. Let's get curious about that. You said this. Let's get curious about it. And I never introduce my own stuff. I give it back to them the way they give it to me. So it really depends. Some people are, because even now that doing this exercise, you will process, your brain is still processing outside of here. So your brain really never goes to sleep. Isn't that true?
Let me put my hand down. Thank you for this. This is really interesting. It actually explains some other behaviors of mine, or helped me get to a place. Because I have very high managers. And so what I realized is I actually do more gazing than I thought. Because once I get my managers calmed down, then I gaze. But I have to get my managers down first.
Are you talking about
like
internal managers?
Yep.
Okay, I'm not sure, because I heard it, but I don't know if everybody else knows. So Natalie is talking about internal family systems. Those are those parts of us, and her managers help her to get through her day, her situation. So that's another intervention that is really powerful, actually.
Yeah. And so so once I learned who was operating within, so this helped me understand some of, so I've been using Gazespotting.
Mm-hmm.
I've been using Gazespotting without even knowing it, because and one of the things that the example that I can give is when I lose something, my managers go off the chain. Like if I lose something, because in my mind, I don't lose things. I don't misplace them. I don't lose them. I'm very structured. So when I'm unable to find something, my managers go ballistic. And so I have to calm them down and sit. And then, I may look at something and I breathe, and right away, wherever it was, I last placed it, put it, or whatever, it comes to me like that.
Because you know where you put it.
Right.
That brain knows where you put it. And so once you can calm those parts down, those manager parts down, then, and there's actually a brain spotting with parts, right? I do that as well. To know. Yeah, I do that as well. Okay. And once you calm them down, then your adrenaline goes down so that you can find the answer. That's why, they talk about the pineal gland here. A lot of times you'll see it here in the center. The third eye. So
and and it's interesting what Ann just wrote in the chat, because my managers do keep me. They are very high and active, and so I have to do a lot of work to get them to a place to where I can even connect with my body to do an exercise like you talked about. Because they'll be all over the place like, what is this? What are we doing? Why are we doing this? What's going on? What's happening? Nothing happening here. So yeah, so thank you for that. Thank you for language and thank you for tools.
Sure. Hello.
So I have a quick question. I was thinking along the lines of what you mentioned with gaze finding, and I was thinking of how I could.
Spotting.
I'm sorry, said it again.
Gaze spotting.
Gaze spotting. Thank you. I got it.
Yep. No problem.
Thank you. So what would you say is the main difference is between that and like dissociating? Because sometimes I can find myself dissociating, and I feel like if I'm trying to put this in action, I might end up dissociating rather than focusing. So how do you like differentiate the two when you're trying to do gaze spotting?
So there is a level of dissociation, but it's minimal. And remember, when you dissociate, you are trying to keep yourself safe. And so is there a heightened anxiety that causes you to step outside of yourself? And also remembering that it's a natural process that you, I'm saying natural because that's the way the brain works, but it's also a process that your body takes on to be able to stabilize itself, bring some safety to it, right? I put her up, but she's in here, the amygdala. And so there's the level, the reason is, why are you stepping away from yourself? Are you stepping away? Because even with gaze spotting, that's daydreaming. You could, it's another form of daydreaming. However, am I daydreaming because I want to keep myself safe? I feel like I'm in danger, and so I'm moving past the daydreaming for creative purposes or things like that. Is there something that I want to avoid? And so the gaze spotting, really shifting your eyes, you're looking for something to go find it versus looking for something to escape from it.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yes. So
and I just want to say this, and I'll let you continue. There is no judgment with dissociation. We have created the judgment about people dissociating, not recognizing that it is what our bodies need to do. Okay.
Then that changes my question. I was going to ask, what would you recommend as some tools to pull yourself out of this dissociation? But do you need to, or would you say allow yourself the space to finish processing whatever it is you felt you needed to be protected from, and then process why you needed that, or just find tools to pull yourself out of the dissociation?
I would say both. I would say both. And the reason why I say that, because you went there for a reason, one. And if you need assistance in that, then find a person to help you understand why that's happening, right? And how often it happens and that kind of thing. One of the ways to bring yourself back is to ground yourself. And I didn't bring, sorry, I had to apologize to my boss. I don't have my grounding beads on today. But using the beads helps you to put yourself back in the moment. And the other thing is, if you don't have that, you can take your feet and scrunch your toes up. Okay. Which then grounds you into the present.
Thank you.
All right. My time is up. Sorry, I went over. Thank you all for allowing me to present tonight. It was my pleasure. It is my pleasure. And yeah, I look forward to much more. Oh, Laverne has her hand up.
This is between you and Ann. First of all, thank you, Dr. Paul. You did an amazing job. Thank you for answering our questions and just taking us through the process. The chat has a wonderful amount of information. When I know we're recording this, does this also record the chat or just the video portion? If not, I think we can save the chat, correct?
We can save the chat, yes.
Right, but it does not record the chat when the video does not
No.
record the chat, right?
No.
Okay. So yeah, I think there's a way to save the chat. Okay.
How many of you would like a copy of the recording along with the chat? Would you like me to send it out? Okay. Okay.
You can, I just saved the chat.
Okay. Thank you.
Kind of just join it text file, but I think you can go in and edit it.
Okay. Awesome. Good question. Thank you. Oh, go ahead, Elam.
I just wanted to say thank you very much for presenting this information. And a lot of the tools that you presented, I think would be very beneficial to a lot of some friends and classmates of mine who school is stressful. So I think this would be very helpful. So just send it to me, send it to my friends. Thank you. You did a great job.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Paula. This was very insightful.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Ready for a session, Ann? No.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop recording.